really would like to keep the dialogue going as it already started with our first keynote speaker. We will be looking at tangible impacts this afternoon to start with, to kick off our discussion. And to do so, it's a pleasure to welcome Dennis Diefenbach, who is CEO of the QA company, and he will be looking at the Europe Direct Contact Center Knowledge Base. So Dennis, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction. So, as the introduction said, I would like to present the EDCC Knowledge Base. This is a presentation that was made together with Morten Espelund, which is part of DG of the European Commission. And he could not participate for technical reasons, but thank you for your contribution. The European Contact Center is strictly related to the Europe Direct Contact Center. So the Europe Direct Contact Center is a support center by the European Union where people can ask questions about the EU. This service is available for both European and non-European citizens. So basically everyone can go and ask questions. It replies questions in 26 languages, the 24 official languages of the EU, plus currently Ukrainian and Russian. And questions can be asked on phone, web form, and something which is new via instant messaging. The objective of the European Direct Contact Center are that it should provide qualitative answers to citizens and also to understand over time citizens' concern. The European Direct Contact Center exists since the year 2000. It is outsourced to a consortium, and in 2022, it received 160,000 messages. So what is the problem behind EDCC? The problem is that there is a lot of knowledge going on in EDCC, and this knowledge should be transferred from one contractor over time to the other, because EDCC is an outsourced service. So sometimes the contractor that takes care of this service change. So there is the need basically to transfer the knowledge from one contractor to the other. There is also the problem that this knowledge that is used to answer citizens' requests should be used both by framework contractors and by the European Commission. And also there is the need that inside EDCC, basically the people that are answering to questions should share their knowledge between each other. So the solution that DG came up with is the EDCC Knowledge Base. And the EDCC Knowledge Base fulfills two main goals. The first goal is to aggregate knowledge. So it should aggregate knowledge to answer to all these incoming requests. And this knowledge can come from different sources. It can come from websites from the European Commission because they contain authoritative answers or information. It should contain reference reply. These are basically replies that are given by the ministries of the European Commission. Sometimes there are questions which are very, very tough, and you cannot find this information on public available sources. So EDCC escalates this to basically the ministries and collects reference replies. And then there is knowledge that is basically aggregated over time in the daily operation, which is the authored content. Let me show you here how EDCC looked like. This is the EDCC knowledge base for a normal user. And basically, we see that we have these three types of resources. And one of them is websites. And for example, here we have one website that was scraped. It's an official website from the Commission. And we extracted basically the content so that it can be easily copy-pasted and used to answer to a citizen's request. And this crawling is happening every day so that this knowledge is basically up to date. We have this reference reply tab, which contains reference reply. Here there is one typical one. List of EU fishing vessels authorized to operate in Guinea-Bissau. So this is something very, very EU specific. someone asks, it's a leader of an NGO, and we have an official reply by DG Mare, which is the DG that is responsible for maritime affairs. And so we have an authoritative answer to this question that can be that is saved here, and also that can be reused for future scenarios. And then we have authored content, for example. If we search for air passenger rights, we have this big article that contains typical answers in the case flights are delayed, are cancelled, and so on. And the nice thing is that all this data is in fact organized in a knowledge graph. So for each of these resources, we have basically the RDF representation, and EDCC in this sense agglomerates information in an RDF knowledge graph, so in knowledge that is shareable and reusable, that can be used to answer to citizens' requests. And we are using a well-defined ontology to model this data, which is also published by the Publication Office. A second goal of EDCC is to answer to the messages itself, and to use this knowledge to help to answer to messages. And we basically combine the knowledge graph with other AI techniques, mostly related to natural language processing, to basically fulfill this goal. So first of all incoming messages are synced with the customer relational management tool, and every 5 minutes, new messages that come in are pushed to the knowledge base. So here, for example, we see messages from the 19 December 2022. I do not show you something up to date for privacy reasons, so these messages sometimes are not anonymized. But yeah, here we see that there is a flow of incoming message that is synchronized every 5 minutes. We run spam detection over these messages. So here we see some example of these spam messages, and basically, yeah, there is a relatively large amount of messages that are not real messages but are just spam. And so we have a classifier, it's a neural network that runs behind the hood and that tries to check if a message is spam or not, so that not all messages that are coming in need to be really analyzed by a human. And furthermore, we have a full NLP pipeline that is running on every message. And here I show you a very concrete case. So this is a message that came in on the 23rd February, and which states, "Dear Sir Madam, I have a very serious problem because I cannot set up 2FA, question mark. I have tried several times. I have EU login app on my phone, but can associate my mobile phone on the EU login. I got error 5305. So it's a very tough question that people at the contact center need to answer. And what we do is that first we detect the language. So it's an English message. If it is not English, then we send it to EC translation to get the translation. We anonymize the message so that we can keep it, also according to GDPR. We do sentiment analysis over the message. In this case, we say it's a rather neutral message. And this is in order to basically check over time what is the mood of citizen. And then we assign a classification. So EDCC has a taxonomy with more than 200 classes that are associated to every incoming message, and that needs to be tagged with this. This is also something published by the Publication Office. So all these steps before had to be done by hand, while meanwhile we automate many of these steps, or we at least give proposition that then can be either accepted or rejected by the user. On the right-hand side, we see also that we make this association with the knowledge that we have accumulated in the first part with the message itself. So for example, we find an article in authored content, which is called Europass logging app error 5305. Which apparently contain already an answer to this message and then can be reused by the citizen. And this is an older message, as we said, from the 23rd February. And we see also that we basically store the answer of the message itself. So we have a full track of basically what is happening inside EDCC, and everything is modeled in a knowledge graph. So we make connection between the messages and the authored content, between who is replying, who is in charge of giving the answer, etc., etc. One thing that is that we are currently working on is basically to try to automatically generate response. And basically, what we do here is that we I hope you can see my screen. What we do is that we use all the history of EDCC to try to formulate automatically a question. Something like, I have a dog and I want to travel from UK to France. Is there they have care about and what we have here is basically a model that, like ChatGPT, tries to answer to this question. It is trained on data that is coming from EDCC, and the answer that is formulated is, dear Roberto, thank you for contacting the European Direct Contact Center. EU rules on pet movements into the EU only apply to movements of ducks, carrots, and ferrets. For other pets such as bird and so on, there is national legislation, and then there are some further information that is a typical answer of EDCC. So this is some work in progress, and we will try to basically integrate this functionality in EDCC and improve these automatically generation of messages over time.
Dennis, I'm afraid we're going to have to ask you to really wrap up in one sentence, please, so that we can take at least one question.
So we have shown basically what is the content of EDCC. We have shown how it is used to answer questions. I would like to thank Digicom, Digit, ESN, and Connectis who worked on this project, and otherwise I'm ready to answer some questions.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Thank you. I'm checking my screen here. Slido, folks, Slido's still open. We haven't received any question yet, but I'm sure there's going to be one coming soon. If you're on Slido, track 2, so this particular track is the blue one, okay? If you want to ask a question from Dennis. Otherwise, you can always scan the QR code. So, still checking. Yes. How do you make sure that the answers to the questions are always up to date?
So there is a whole workflow in EDCC. So for example, the content has an expiry date. So after this expiry date happened, someone has to basically check if this content is still up to date and update this expiry date. So there are certain mechanisms like this that are basically kept in place in order to keep this knowledge up to date over time.
Thank you. And it's exactly time for us to stop there. There's another question, but we'll forward it to you. We'll make sure, actually, that's for everybody. If you send questions and we don't have time to answer them, we will get back to you in the coming days to make sure that you do receive your answer. There's a lot of people working behind the scenes who will answer your questions. So, Denis, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And thanks for your presentation. I think hopefully a lot of people will want to use Europe Direct now if they haven't tried it yet. Thank you very much, Dennis.
Thank you. Bye-bye.